Hi, I'm Adrienne Kinney. I'm currently serving as the president of the board of directors. And this year I had the privilege of sitting on our awards committee. And before I get to the award I will be presenting, I just want to say how much I appreciate everything that our members and chapters have done over the past year. It has been incredibly difficult times to organize in, and people have just risen to the challenge. It's interesting because, just a couple of years ago, people weren't too keen on using online media platforms and other ways of communicating. And yet when we had to, we learned how to and we overcame, and people are doing some great work. So without further ado, I am very happy to say that this year's chapter of the year goes to Rochester. And I'm kind of happy about that as a fellow Central New York member who just recently moved back to my hometown. But Rochester has just been doing some amazing work through a lot of challenges. So they have been able to maintain meetings. They have organized online meeting spaces. They have given our national projects and other working groups a platform to share their work. And they also create a really wonderful space for new members to get involved and get engaged in a supportive way. So I'm really happy with everything Rochester has been able to do this year. I'm happy with so many of our chapters, so many of our members, so many of everything that Veterans for Peace is doing. And thank you. And congratulations, Rochester.
Hi, my name is Joey King, and I'm the past president of the Veterans for Peace chapter here in Nashville, Tennessee. I was also a member of the Veterans for Peace board for many years, and very, very pleased to be announcing the Gandhian NonViolence Award for 2021 is going to Mr. Hector Black. Hector was a member of our chapter for many years, worked in counter recruiting, did many events with him. And he is the most Christ-like person I've ever met in my entire life. Those of you who didn't get a chance to know Hector when he was still with us, you really missed something. He passed away just after last year's convention. And the way this award is written, it can be awarded posthumously to people who passed away since the last convention. Hector was a World War II veteran, and he started a life of peace that began somewhere around 1946 when he went around France to see some of the people that he would have been killing in 1946, and decided that he was on the wrong path and turned to Quaker meeting. And if you really want to do some research and you've got about a day's worth of reading to do, look up Hector Black and Quaker, and you'll find so much stuff that you can't read it possibly in a day. One thing he's very well noted for is his daughter was killed by a man, and he got before the jury and told the jury that he hated what the man did, but he didn't hate the man, and talked them out of giving him the death sentence. And for many years, continued to write and send Christmas presents to the man who had killed his own daughter. So cannot thank the committee enough for making this award to Hector. I think it's the first time we've ever awarded something like this posthumously to a former member, and we cannot be more thrilled here in Tennessee to be giving this award to his 3 surviving daughters. In Labor Day, we will be having a memorial for Hector at his farm in Tennessee, and we will be giving this award to his 3 daughters on that day.
It's my great honor to be the person who is acknowledging and stating the fact that Peggy Akers has won the VFP National Stewardship Award for this year. A person who really deserves it and has earned it 100%. I've known Peggy for probably 25, 30 years. She was a nurse in Vietnam. joined Veterans for Peace when she lived out in San Francisco, and joined forces with the likes of Paul Cox and Jim Janko, et cetera, working in schools, talking to young people about the reality of war and military service. I have had the honor of speaking with her on a number of occasions in high schools as we've done our work here in Maine. She moved to Maine and lives on Peaks Island and then also in Portland. She and I would join forces and go talk to high school students about the realities of war again. I would just watch these students. You know, we're talking an auditorium full of 150, 200 students, just absolutely enraptured with Peggy's words. I mean, Peggy has such an ability to speak so movingly about her experience without any kind of flourish or anything. She speaks directly. She's written a wonderful poem called Dear America about her experience as a nurse in Vietnam. So I've seen her in action that way. She is also the head nurse in a project called Seeds for Peace, which bring Israeli and Palestinian teenagers together for a 2-week camp experience here in Maine. She has been the person who's the nurse of that. And I know Peggy, and she does much, much more than take care of these people medically. She talks to them very clearly about what's going on. She doesn't proselytize. She doesn't try to make any case at all, but she just listens and then speaks from the heart, and with an immense level of experience and intelligence. She's just a remarkable human being. So she's done that work. In addition to doing that, of course, Peggy, who was in her mid-70s, as I am, still hasn't retired. She is a nurse down in Portland and on the islands. She works with unhoused teenagers and unhoused veterans. And she's been called upon to jump into a Piper Cub and fly out to an island off the coast to give vaccines to people who are asking for them. She also served for a time as the president of our chapter here in Maine and did an excellent job doing that. And she continues to be this force amongst us that is really unstoppable and a delight to be with. So it is truly, truly, truly a great honor to bestow upon her this award, which she very, very much deserves. So thank you, Veterans for Peace. Great stuff. She's a wonderful person. She deserves this 100%. So thank you again for the VFP for bringing this forward and recognizing Peggy.
Okay, I'm Dave Logston, Vice President of a local chapter here in the Twin Cities, Chapter 27. We've been a chapter for 35 years, and a couple of people have been stanchions in our group for a long time. And one of the people that I'm presenting for the Leadership in Peace Award exemplifies the and displays initiative, inclusiveness, tirelessness, and persistence, and moving the mission of Vets for Peace forward, either locally and nationally or internationally. Barry Riesch, who I'm nominating for this award, I think is totally worthy of this award, and I'll tell you why. For over 30 years, he's been clean and sober. He's been a member of our chapter and has been the national president for a year. He's been our local president. Barry always does the presente thing, does a wonderful job at that because he's a very profound individual and he does it in a very serious way. He always shows up. One of the things I've always said whenever I get a chance to address a local rally is to thank people for showing up. Because showing up is an important part of Vets for Peace. And anybody who's trying to organize in Vets for Peace will tell you showing up is very important. And Barry is a guy that shows up. And he shows up the SOA Watch for many, many years and as a staple. And former President David Klein, who died from Agent Orange complications, Barry was flew to his funeral, and not just being a presence there, he carried on David Klein's tradition at the SOA Watch with the Veterans March of doing a cadence with our own lyrics in the cadence that most people experience in boot camp. And Barry took up that mantle and was the guy who did the cadence thing at the SOA Watch. Locally, Barry is our membership, now is our current membership guy. And when I was president for 5 years, he would always say, Dave, I want to put membership. That should be the number one thing on the agenda, every meeting, number one thing on the agenda. And I said, okay, Barry, number one thing on the agenda, because he always says, we have to get members, we have to get younger, all this stuff. And Barry, whenever we get a new member, Barry would call them up and meet with them and have coffee with them and kind of vet them out and see where their skill, where their interests were. And he tries to do that with as many new members as he can. And he says he does that because if they just come to a meeting, they see a bunch of old white guys, they're going to walk out the door in about 2 seconds. So he said, I want to have coffee with him first. And then I said, well, now they get to talk to one old white guy, grumpy old white guy, before they get to the meeting. When we had the canoe raffle, which kept our chapter financially above water for years, Barry had the canoe in his garage, and he would be hauling that thing over to events, and he would be out there all day selling those raffle tickets. He was really good. I would be talking about Vets for Peace with people, but Barry was selling raffle tickets, and it was important work. And Barry was at Standing Rock 5 times. That's a long drive up there. It was winter, blizzards, and Barry was up there 5 different times at Standing Rock. Barry was at Jeju Island for the demonstrations in Korea on that island. And he came back, he ended up in the ER because he almost died. It's a long trip, and he's not getting any younger. He's a member of the Unitarian Church in St. Paul. And as a member of that church, he's lobbied to have the plate passed once a year for Vets for Peace. And he usually raises about $750 every year for Vets for Peace through his congregation. He did that on his own. That's initiative. That's saying, I'm going to do this. Another thing Barry has initiation has been merchandise. The really nice Vets for Peace fleece things and jackets that people really are really dress us up till we look actually kind of professional when we talk to people. Barry is the one that did the legwork on it, and he still does the legwork. Somebody goes to our website and orders something, Barry goes and packages it all up, goes to FedEx and ships it off to people. And I mean, that's just saying, and that's just yesterday at the state capitol, we had Bruce Barry made a really nice stop at line 3 banner, and Barry was on the other end of that thing, and Bruce was on one end, Barry was in the middle, and I was on the other end. So he continues to show up for events, and he has for all these years. If you have an action and an event, Barry is there. Peace out to Barry.
Good evening to all the peace warriors out there. My name is Jonathan W. Hutto Sr., longtime supporter of Veterans for Peace, member of Veterans for Peace, and I've been assigned the task and have the honor, I'm both honored and humbled this evening, to present the Howard Zinn Lifetime Achievement Award to Dr. David Cortright, affectionately known to me as David. I first met David as an active duty member of the United States Navy when the 30th anniversary copy of Soldiers in Revolt was sent to me when I was an enlisted sailor off the coast of Iraq. And you will see that the foreword to this 30th anniversary copy was written by Howard Zinn. This book was first published in 1975 when David Cortright was a PhD student under the guidance of Mark Raskin at the Institute for Policy Studies. David Cortright. I can't say enough about David. I don't have enough time to really say all that I want to say about David, but I'll tell you this. David, if there is a living embodiment to what Howard Zinn exemplified in his life, one who came to know the horrors of war, Howard himself as a bombardier in World War II, one who then became a scholar himself, an academician beginning at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, who threw the weight of his scholarship and advocacy within the civil rights struggle with his students from Spelman College, people like Alice Walker, those like Mary Wright Elderman and many others. Howard, who then went on to become very critical and an advocate for peace within that Vietnam conflict, and then his masterpiece, many of us have it on our shelves today, A People's History of the United States. David Cortright himself followed a similar trajectory coming out of the University of Notre Dame, volunteering for Vietnam so he could be in the band and not have to potentially have his life snatched from him on the battlefield of Vietnam, becoming engaged in the GI movement, becoming a fighter for peace from within the military, and then chronicling that struggle within this book, which 30 years later had a significant impact upon me on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt. David Cortright labors and has labored in that tradition of what Dr. King calls the drum major instinct. With David, from what I saw from David and how he nurtured us and helped us and guided us in the appeal for redress, which we launched in the fall of 2006, active duty military members at that time seeking to end the conflicts in Iraq, the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan through peaceful means. David labors in such a way where he doesn't seek greatness. He seeks to serve, and in so doing, he bumps into a little greatness along the way. So tonight, he's bumped into some greatness. He's bumped into this Howard Zinn Lifetime Achievement Award. I would be remiss not to say that David is an intergenerational struggler, just as he labored at the Institute for Policy Studies to publish this manual, which is still a guide for us today. It was a little over 30 years later that we received this award, the Atelier Moffitt Human Rights Award from that same institute, which gave David the resources and what he needed to be able to publish his masterpiece. So David, I'm very proud and very humbled and honored to present the Howard Zinn Lifetime Achievement Award to you, knowing that you're going to continue to labor for peace and continue to be an inspiration to my generation, to the generation coming after Generation X, and to generations unborn. Salute, David. Peaceful salute to you. Thank you, and keep pressing on.